Am I recording? I am recording. Hello, guys. Happy Monday. Coming up on Memorial Day weekend. I'm still not sure what days we are distance learning and which days we are not distance learning. So I'll keep you updated as soon as I find out. We might have Thursday, Friday, Monday off, but we are not 100% sure if that's happening yet. But like I said, I will keep you updated, and we will definitely learn today. So, circles unit. This is the part of circles that I actually don't hate very much, and we're going to be talking about the equations of circles today. First off, what's a circle? It's a round thing, right? Is that what you guys are saying to yourself? Well, yeah. Well, we've had the conversation earlier this year. Is a circle a polygon? And we discussed that. No, they have a big argument about whether a circle is a polygon or not. So I can't really say a circle is definitely a polygon, but we can say that it is a round figure. And what makes a circle a circle? Well, a circle has a center, right? And it's round, okay? And then what is this part called? From the center to the outside of the circle. That's the radius, right? Okay. Now, the radius, no matter where I draw it from the center, okay, is always going to be the same exact length. And that's basically what a circle is, okay? A circle is a round figure whose boundary, meaning this part out here, has points equidistant, meaning the same distance from the center. And that's basically all a circle is that the radius, if it's over here and there's another radius over here, these are the same exact amount, okay? And the next one I kind of just gave away. The distance from the center of a circle to any point that lies on the circle is called the, you guessed it, the radius. All right. Before we move on to the equation of a circle, though, what is this equation over here? That's the equation of what type of a picture? That's a line, right? And then we call that a linear equation where this guy in here is the slope. Anybody remember what this guy over here is? Your y-intercept. And every single line that you draw in the coordinate plane, okay, would have an equation that looks like this. Just like every single circle that we draw in the coordinate plane has an equation that looks like this. Okay, where I can get all of the points, the coordinates of the outside of the circle if I plug it into some equation. And here's the standard form of an equation of a circle. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now r, I bet you could guess what r stands for. R is how long the radius is. What about h and k though? Those are two letters we haven't really seen yet. Well, h and k are the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the center. X and y coordinate of the center. Okay, so if the center of a circle was 3, 5, okay, and I was putting the circle into an equation form, I would put a 3 here and a 5 here. And then if the radius of that circle was 5 units long, I would pop in a 5 for r. Okay, so what does that mean? That means all I need to figure out what the equation of a circle is the coordinates of the center and how long the radius is. And I can figure out where that circle is in the coordinate plane. I can figure out how big or small it is. Okay, all I need is the coordinates of the center and the radius. So let's do a couple of examples down here. Write the equations of the following circles given the center and the radius, or sometimes they might give us the diameter. All right. Every single one of these equations is going to look like this: x minus h squared, where h is the x coordinate of the center, plus y minus k squared, where k is the y coordinate of the center, equals r squared, and r is going to be the radius. All right. So the center in this case is 5, 3. So where's my pink pen? My wife stole it from me. Son of a bee sting. Oh well. All right. The center, this is going to be 5 is going to be my h. 3 is going to be my k. And the radius is r. And now I'm just going to pop those into the standard form equation of a circle. So what's the equation of this circle? It would be x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 2 squared. Now, I'm going to write that in pencil real quick. Is 2 squared in simplest form? It's not. And we usually won't see the equation of a circle like this, okay? When we see the equation of the circle, they're actually going to be, there's going to be one singular number out here. So what is 2 squared? 2 squared is 4. So that's the equation of a circle that has a center at 5, 3 and a radius of 2. Next would be the equation. Let's keep going. What's the equation of this circle that has a center at -1, 7 and a radius of 14? All right, so here's my h, here's my k, and my radius is going to be 14. So pop it in. X minus -1 plus y minus 7 equals 14 squared. Now, there's a couple of things that are a little weird about this. Like I said before, we're going to definitely square this 14, which I think is 196, if I'm not mistaken. 14 squared? Yeah, 196. Okay, so this is going to be 14 squared is 196. All right, and then there's another weird thing. Doesn't this look weird to you? Minus -1. What is minus a negative really? It's really plus a positive, right? So we're really not going to see this too much either, minus negative. Instead, this is going to say x plus 1 and y minus 7. I forgot two major things here, though. My exponent of 2. And here's the equation of that circle. Notice, up here in number 1, the center was at 5, positive 5, comma, positive 3. But in the equation, it's -5 and -3. That's weird. Over here, the center was -1, comma, 7. So over here, this is +1 and -7. So when the center is in the actual equation of the circle, it's the opposite sign. Okay? Positive, positive, negative, negative. Negative, positive, positive, negative. It's always the opposite. All right, let's try another one. What's different about number 3? Well, here's my h, here's my k. These are both negatives, so when they go into the equation, they should turn to pluses. But this says that the diameter is 18. I don't really care about the diameter, even though it's going to help me figure out what the radius is. But remember, when I plug into the equation of a circle, I need a radius length out here, not a diameter. But if the diameter is 18, that means my radius is half of the diameter. And half of 18 is 9. So pop this into the equation, and we get x plus 2 squared plus y plus 11 squared equals 9 to the second power, which is 9 to the second power is 81. And there's the equation of that circle. Okay. Center over here. Here's my H. Here's my K. Diameter is 32, which means my radius is half of that, which is 16. And now I just pop them in. X plus, minus 0 squared plus y minus 9 squared equals 16 to the second power. Was that 256? Yeah, 16 squared is 256. Now, there's one thing I wanted to bring up about this one is that what's x minus nothing? What is x minus nothing? Well, x minus nothing is just x. It's itself, right? So sometimes we might not see it that like this, okay? We might not have the minus 0 in here. We might see it as x squared plus y minus 9 squared equals 256. This, if the x coordinate of the center is a 0, we might not see the 0, but if we just see x squared, we'll know that the x coordinate of the center would be 0. All right. Center is -4, 0. Radical 47 is the radius. Okay. So here's my h. Here's my k. This is the radius, so this is my r, radical 47. All right, pop it into the equation of a circle. X minus -4, since it's a negative, it's going to turn positive. And then, like I said before, if the coordinate is 0, okay, we're not going to write y minus 0 squared because y minus 0 is just y. So let's just put y squared. Equals the radius squared. Well, the radius is radical 47. I'm going to do something over here real quick. So what's radical 47 to the second power? Well, if you put that into the calculator, radical 47, to the second power is just 47. So when you square a radical, they basically kind of just cancel each other out, and we just have 47. So the radius squared here is 47. And last one on the page. Here's my h, here's my k, here's my r. So x minus 15 squared plus y, this is -6, so it's going to turn positive 6 squared equals, what's radical 158 squared? Remember, if you square a radical, the radical just disappears. So we're just left with good old 158 over here. Make sense? Alrighty, moving on. Alright, write an equation of the circle given the graph of the circle. Ooh, I like these questions. Alright, write the equation of the circle given the graph of the circle. So what are the only two things that we need in order to write the equation of a circle? We need a center and we need a radius, which we can definitely figure out looking at this graph. The center looks like it's at -1, 2, 3, +1, 2. Looks like the center is -3, +2. And it looks like the radius is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units long. Okay. So if the center is -3, 2, and my radius is 5, and I know that the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. Here's my h, here's my k, here's my r. Now I'm just going to pop them in. X minus -3 is really +3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals r squared. So what's 5 squared? 25. Boom. There's the equation of that circle. All right. Moving on. Alrighty. Here we go. All right. What do we need? We need a center and a radius, which we could definitely figure out here. Center is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. So it looks like my center is 5, comma, -2. Looks like my radius is 1, 2, 3. Cool. Radius is 3. The center is 5, comma, -2, which means 5 is my h, -2 is my k. And now I'm just going to pop it into the equation, which is x minus h, which is 5 squared, plus y minus -2, which is really plus 2 squared, equals, if the radius is 3, I need to put 3 squared over here, which is 9. Boom, equation, done. Moving on. Oop, no diagram here, so we're gonna have to do some fancy footwork. They tell us the center, and they tell us that the point on the circle is 7, 4. All right, let's figure out what we're doing here. So the center is at 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 is all the way up here at the top. Okay, there's my center. We'll call it C. And a point that lies on the circle. Anytime you see that, that means it lies on the outside or the boundary of the circle. Is at 7, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And that means my circle's kind of going to look something like, oh, do I have a compass? I'm going to press pause for a second. I found my compass, so this is going to be a little difficult, one-handed. All right, so what does this circle look like? Well, here's the center. Here is the outside of the circle, and remember that the center to the outside of the circle remains the same all the way around. This is very difficult with one hand. All right, so I'm talking about a circle that looks like this. All right. All right, goes off the graph a little, but who cares? That's fine. All right. All right, so we need to figure out what's the equation of this circle. Well, what are the two things that you need for an equation? You need the center, which we have, 9 and 10. 9 is my h, 10 is my k. And then I need to know what else in order to find the equation of a circle. I need to know the radius. How long is this? Okay. Now, it looks like my radius is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit, okay? But I can't put that as the radius, okay? I need an exact amount, all right? So is there any way for me to figure out in the coordinate plane how long this piece is? I think so. I think it's probably, how about Pythagorean theorem? Right? Where this is a little 2 units long, this looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units long. And how long is this? Well, use Pythagorean theorem. 2 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. 2 squared is 4. 6 squared is 36. Equals x squared. 36 plus 4 is 40. Okay, and if I take the square root of both sides, I get that x equals radical 40. Now, really quick, what did we say that the radius was going to be? It was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit. So radical 40 is 6.32, which qualifies as a little bit. All right, Now, for the sake of this, we're going to just leave it as radical 40. Okay, that's how long the radius is. Radical 40 units long, which we know is like 6.3 something. Okay, but we're going to leave it in exact terms, just like on the front of the page. Okay, they give us radiuses as radical units long. We're going to do the same thing back here. All right, so here's my h, here's my k, here's my r. Now I'm just going to put that in the equation form of a circle. X minus h squared, 9, plus y minus k is 10, so minus 10 squared, equals radical 40 squared. Radical 40 is the length of the radius. What's radical 40 squared? It's just 40, guys. And here's your equation. Coolio? Sweet. Moving on. Okie doke. Now we don't have graphs. Oh, snap. No graphs. What are we going to do? Well, if I need to write an equation of a circle, I'm going to keep writing it. X minus h squared minus, plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay. H and k are my center, which I have in this one. And this one's giving me a point on the circles, -7 comma -13. What can I do now? Well, I have the center. I just need the radius. I need to figure out how long is the radius. Well, if I don't have any graph paper, which I know a lot of you don't, we don't need graph paper to figure out how long the radius is. I like doing it that way better, okay? But there is the distance formula, okay? The distance formula just says this. The distance of a line segment is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, now what's my x2 and my x1 and my y2 and my y1? Well, if I want to find the length of the radius, that's the length from the center to the outside of the circle, and I have a point on the circle. So if I want to figure out what's the length from here to here, I can just pop these coordinates in here. The distance from the center to the point on the circle would be the square root of x2 minus x1, so -7 minus 1 squared, plus y2 minus y1, -13 minus -5 squared. Alright, so distance equals the square root of -7 minus 1 is -8. -8 squared is +64. -13 minus -5, which is really +5. -13 plus 5 is -8. -8 squared is 64. So the distance is 64 plus 64 is 128. So what does that mean? The distance from the center to the outside of the circle. So if I were to draw a circle, here's the center to a point on the circle. What is this center to the outside of the circle? That's a radius. Well, that's what we just found out here. We figured out how far is the center from the point on the circle. It's radical 128 units long. That's my radius. All right? I have my center. I have my radius. Now I'm just going to pop it in. X minus 1 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals radical 128 squared. And you don't have to, you can skip this step if you want. I'm just reminding you, okay? that I could rewrite this as radical 128 squared is 128. There's your equation. Alrighty then. Same thing here. Here's my center, h and my k. Point on the circle. I have to figure out how far is the center from the point on the circle. Okay, so in order to do that, I would use the distance formula. Okay, so how long is the radius? Well, I'm going to use distance formula. It would be the square root of 10 minus -6 squared plus 1 minus 2 squared, and take the square root of that. Okay, so the radius is going to be 10 plus 6, which is 16, and 16 squared is 256, plus 1 minus 2 is -1, and -1 squared is +1. So my radius is the square root of 257, because that's 256 plus 1. We're going to leave it like that. I have my h, I have my k, I have my r. X minus 2 squared plus y plus 6 squared equals the square root of 257 squared is just 257. Boom, there's your equation. Moving forward. Circumference and area. Remember, the circumference of a circle is cherry. Pi is delicious. Circumference equals pi times d. We can find the circumference of any circle with the equation. Oh, I meant to write that down here, guys. Sorry. Okay. Circumference is the distance around the circle. And how do we find it? We do pi times d. The area of a circle, well, what is the area of a circle? It's the number of square units inside the circle. How do we find area? Apple pies are 2. Pi r squared. That's review. We've done that. We did that a couple of, actually we did that in the beginning of the year, and then we reviewed it a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago. All right. Circumference formula, area formula. Write the equation given the center and the circumference. Ooh. This is where it gets a little bit hairy. Okay. Write the equation given the center and the circumference. Center, boom, easy. H and K. Circumference is 6 pi. I'm going to write my formulas up here. C equals pi times D. A equals pi r squared. Circumference is 6 pi. I need to figure out what are the two things if I'm writing the equation of a circle that I need. I need a center, which I have, and I need a radius. But I'm not given the radius, I'm given the circumference. Okay? The circumference is 6 pi. Which letter, I know you guys had a hard time with this part, okay? Which letter does circumference start with? I know that seems like an easy question, guys, but what letter does circumference start with? Starts with the letter C. So this here, since it's the circumference, I'm going to plug in 6 pi. My ultimate goal is to find the radius of this circle. I'm only given the circumference, so I'm going to use this formula here. Since circumference starts with C, and they are telling me that the circumference of this circle is 6 pi, I'm going to plug in 6 pi for C. I'm plugging in 6 pi into the circumference formula, and I'm plugging it in for C because this is the circumference. 6 pi equals pi times the diameter. Okay, all I did was I popped it in right here. 6 pi equals pi times the diameter. Now, look what happens. If I solve for d, the diameter, I would divide both sides by pi. What happens when you divide pi by pi? They cancel out. I get that d, the diameter, is 6. Which means how long is the radius? Diameter looks like this. And this is 6 units long from here to here. So what would r be? R would be half of that, which is 3. So I have my r, I have my h, I have my k. I'm writing the equation now. So I'm just going to pop in my h and my k and pop in my r squared at the end. X plus 1 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals, my radius is 3, my radius squared means that's 9. Boom. Same thing here. Do me a favor, pause the video and do this one on your own. Alright, I did the same thing here. Okay, you could see 17 pi. I popped that in for c in the circumference formula because circumference starts with the letter c, therefore 17 pi is c. Pop 17 pi in for c, c equals pi times d, divide both sides by pi, and I get that d equals 17, which means the diameter is 17, which means the radius is half of the diameter, which is 8.5. So I have my r, I have my h, I have my k, boom, x minus 9 squared plus y minus 12 squared equals 72.25. That's your equation of that circle. All right. Let's try another one. Write the equation of a circle given the center and the area. Here's my h, boom. Here's my k, boom. Area is 16 pi. What letter does area start with? I repeat, what letter does area start with? Very good. The word area starts with the letter A. So, looking up here, I know for a fact that in order to find the area of a circle, I can do pi times the radius squared. Okay? Here, they're giving me the area, which starts with the letter A. So what do you think I'm going to plug 16 pi in for in the area formula? Plug it in for A. If the area, which starts with A, is 16 pi, plug it in for A. 16 pi equals pi r squared. And now solve for r, which stands for radius, which is the only other thing I need to find the equation of a circle. Divide by pi, divide by pi. Pi cancels, pi cancels. 16 equals r squared. How do I get rid of an exponent of 2? I square root, and I get that the radius of this particular circle is 4. I have my h, I have my k, I have my r. Now I'm going to write the equation. Y plus 8 squared plus, time out. Holy smokes, I messed that up. Reverse that. Should have worked in pencil. X plus 8 squared plus y plus 11 squared equals, if the radius is 4, the radius squared has to be 16. There's your equation. My bad, messed up, caught it. So nobody has to text me and say, "Mister, you made a mistake." Love getting those texts. Write an equation of the circle given the center and the area. Here's the center, which means this is an h and this is a k. Area is 361 pi. Area, of course, starts with the letter A. So, what am I going to plug in 361 pi for? In the area formula, which is pi r squared, I'm going to plug in 361 pi. Since area starts with A, I'm going to plug in 361 pi for A. 361 pi equals pi r squared. Solve for r. Divide by pi. Cancels. Divide by pi. Cancels. 361 equals r squared. I don't believe that 361 is a perfect square. Oh, snap. I was wrong. 19. So my radius is 19. All right, I got my center, I got my radius. So x minus 2 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals, my radius is 19, my radius squared is 361. There's your equation for that circle. Any other questions? Good. See you later. Moving on. All right, last thing, last page. Given the following equation, identify the center and the radius or the diameter. Oh, super easy. Remember, my radius comes from, my center comes from this number and this number. But what do you remember? Okay. What happened to these numbers when we plugged them in? If the center was a positive number, these became negative, and if the centers were negative numbers, these became positive. So if I'm pulling them out of the equation and looking at this equation and saying, oh, the center is bop, 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 remember, I have to change the sign of both of these numbers. Which means if I have x minus 5 and y minus 1, that means the center is actually positive 5 and positive 1. Okay. Remember also, for radius, this is not the radius. This is the radius squared. So I have to take the square root of this number in order to figure out what the radius is. And the square root of 64 is 8. So looking at this equation, I know that the center is 5, 1. And that since r squared is 64, that means that the radius has to be 8. How about this one? Remember, change the signs. We're going to pull out the center from these two numbers here and here. Those are my h and my k. But change the sign. Since this is a plus 7, I know that the center's x-coordinate has to be -7. Since this is a minus 2, I know that the y-coordinate of the center of the circle has to be +2. All right. What does this number out here represent? This is my radius squared. My radius squared is 324. So if I take the square root of that, I get 18. So which means my radius is 18. Unfortunately, they are asking me for diameter. So what do I have to do to 18? If the radius of a circle is 18, but they want the diameter, which is all the way across, I would have to multiply it by 2. And 18 plus 18 is 36. Yeah, 36. All right. Down here, remember, h and k, change the signs. X squared, where's the x coordinate of the center? Weird. All right, let's skip to the y coordinate. Well, this is a plus 10, which means my center has to be at -10 in the y direction. What's the x coordinate though? There's no number next to x squared. Well, if you go back a couple of pages, we talked about when that happens. Since I'm not doing anything to the x squared, that means that the x coordinate of the center of this circle is 0, 0, -10. All right. Here's my radius squared. Okay, so if I take the square root of 42.25, that means that my radius is 6.5. And then if I'm giving them the diameter, I have to multiply that number by 2, which is 6.5 times 2 is 13. All right. Last but not least, here's my x coordinate, here's my y coordinate. Remember, just change the sign. So what's the center? +6, -11. Okay, here's my radius squared. So if I take the square root of 58, I get 7.615773106. Do you think I should write that? Probably not. I'm just going to leave it radical 58. And that, my friends, is the equations of circles. Okay, I'm going to attach a homework. The homework will be due by Wednesday. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to text me on Remind or send me a message on Teams or send me an email at nicholas.tracy@bufsd.org. Okay? I hope everyone is doing well and everyone is healthy. And I will talk to all of you soon. I'll let you know what's going on with Memorial Day weekend as soon as I find out. Have a good day, guys.